Pardon me, gentlemen, but have either of you seen a girl with short blonde hair and a functioning tablet?
Why, no, I haven't.
Hey, he was talking to me!
No, he was talking to me!
Why, you...
In quite a few ways, 2023 was a very sad and annoying year to put up with. Between film culture being at some of its least fun to follow in a long time, at times even most painful, not helped by the sad state of Warner Brothers, game culture taking a hit with the loss of E3, and general opinion on other mass events turning for the worse, and social media choosing to not care about anything anymore. I'm still getting called Twitter, by the way. Shouts to you, Black Origin, for all the hard work the devs have done with it. Keep fighting the good fight. There's many things that really made this year hard to put up with from that perspective. But on a much brighter personal note, last year was a big step forward in life for me, now that I am living on my own and am even full-time employed. I really love the personal trips I went on throughout 2023, and like usual, a lot of great games came out throughout its course. I don't think we got as many great games compared to 2022, but I feel that's less of a problem because of the quality of what we did get. Though going off my belief that 2023 wasn't as varied compared to last time, I'll admit that I didn't get as many new releases as I would have liked, so that might be affecting it. There's quite a few games I wanted to get sooner or later that I initially didn't, and a few entries that were added on at the last minute, since I like to count games I get for Christmas in these kinds of lists. But I did at least play enough to make a top 10, so that's always good. So, shall we take a look at them? One thing I always look forward to when keeping track of games I play in a year is what kind of indie games will catch my attention. Indie developers are continuing to put out some wildly creative ideas for their games that a year's ensemble of them is essentially a box of chocolates, as in, you don't know what you'll get at a certain time. To showcase this, let's take a look at a 3D platformer Metroidvania. Pseudo Regalia is a game I was made aware of thanks to Nitrorad's video on it, and some of my friends enjoying it, and I was more than happy to pick it up at one point. While indie 2D Metroidvanias are a dime a dozen, heck, you'll see one later on, I really have begun to notice that we don't have much in regards to that subgenre in 3D, let alone one that bases its playstyle off a lot of early 3D platformers, like Mario 64. I'm really fascinated by this direction because it allows Castle Sansa to shine in a different way compared to 2D, on top of very sophisticated level design that takes advantage of the abilities Sybil has, and one she will get soon enough. These movement upgrades are fun to use as is, but with how tight Sybil controls, and with the amount of freedom you have with certain moves, especially my favorite ones, the wall kick and the long jump, you can actually beat some individual level designs in unintended ways. This is what makes Pseudo Regalia fun to me. It lets you think outside the box and explore Castle Sansa however you want, and no matter how you want to beat each challenge or what order you go in, it'll lead you somewhere. The castle in general is also imaginative atmospherically. Each room feels huge, and the rundown and dark look is really done well with the low polygon look akin to N64 and PS1 games this game's going for. My personal favorites in this regard are easily the Twilight Theater and the Empty Bailey. I will say though, I do think it gets a little too dark visually sometimes, especially in the underbelly, and I would like a map feature so I can tell where I have and haven't been for future reference, because I do think those causing the navigation to be hit or miss ultimately does hold the game back from being any higher. But the game has more than enough things I like about it to say that it was worth a playthrough. Just tapping into what Sybil can do and looking around for even more menial stuff is all you need to have a good time. And for the cherry on top, this game is only $6. That's a good deal if you ask me. Despite my overall ambivalence to most Battle Royale games, I've really grown to admire the ones based off classic titles. It's cool to see some devs apply a new spin to a game most people know, and I can appreciate the original release it's based on through this method. Now, I am garbage at Tetris, but I did try out Tetris 99 back when it was new, and I'm impressed by what it did to fit 99 players into one match, and by the fact that it's still going strong today. Sadly, I missed my chance to try out Pac-Man 99 and Super Mario Bros. 35. Guess they just weren't a high priority for me. But in 2023, we got one that really did catch my eye. Now, my experience with F-Zero basically doesn't exist, beyond briefly trying out the original on the Switch Online service, and thinking it was fine, but being an absolute joke at it. But despite that, F-Zero 99 really did manage to hook me, and get me to come back from time to time for some more races. Control feels really tight, and I find it easy to grasp what each car could do to a point where I can finish in semi-decent places, but mastery at it and knowledge of the tracks does give you a significant edge. It also feels good to use the spin to mess with other players, but the biggest thing about the core gameplay I really admire is how well it manages the Skyway. This is the game's comeback mechanic, but it's only failed if you are able to pick up light orbs left behind from the collisions of other players, and there's both skill and strategy using it. Strategy, as there are places on the track where using it will be the most helpful, and when you fill the meter up, it replaces boosting, so holding onto it throughout a lot of the race might shoot you in the foot. And skill because of the speed boosters placed on it to launch you further, if you notice them. Basically, the Skyway is not a bullet bill. If you know what you're doing, it will help you. Each of the tracks are also well edited from the original versions to accommodate for the SMA players, and the drones that can interfere with the higher places. And there's also different achievements based on what you accomplish that reward you with stickers to your license card, and even paint jobs to your vehicle. There's even different types of timed race events like Elimination Grand Prix, team races, and even classic races with 20 competitors using F-Zero 1's mechanics and a 4:3 aspect ratio. I do think the game does legit give you a reason to go back and race. Even if I blow up again, I get this feeling like I can rectify that mistake and find my way back into a match as quickly as I can. It's a rush of excitement that I think you can get into just fine. Hopefully this can be a stepping stone to a potential return of F-Zero, and hopefully this won't have its plug pulled and the series won't get fully pushed back into the vault. Please don't terminate service for this Nintendo, especially anytime soon. While indie 2D Metroidvanias are a dime a dozen, heck, you'll see one later on. Well, it's later on. I'm always down for a really fun 2D Metroidvania whenever I find one, and Afterimage was one that I was really interested in. I mean, I wasn't going out of my way to play it or anything like that, but I decided to pick it up once a friend of mine spoke of it very positively. And I'm glad I did. The game doesn't really try to innovate the Metroidvania subgenre in any way, rather it just focuses on what works and offers its own take on things. You'll eventually get a lot of movement upgrades to help you explore further, as is usually the case, but you'd be surprised how far you can get with just a couple of them. By that, I mean the world of Ungarden is massive, and leaves a lot open to the player for what exactly they want to explore at the moment. I find it more enjoyable to just let go of the mindset that I need to get to the end as quickly as possible, and just take my time enjoying the sights and the challenges. This has led to me being challenged as bosses way earlier than intended, and I feel it's a good thing for this kind of game design. Heck, you literally get a method of sea travel partway through, just to give you an idea as to how far this map goes. With this being part RPG though, some areas are definitely much harder to manage than others, thanks to the aggressive enemies that can hit really hard, but knowing how to use the combat to the fullest is the key to making your way through. Renee's dash is a key component to avoiding enemy onslaughts, but the amount of weapons she can wield makes the combat one of the best parts of the game. There's many to wield like swords, dual swords, whips, and even scythes, but you can equip one as your main weapon and another as a sub-weapon on top of choosing a magic spell to use with it. Everyone you pick up has their own properties that can prepare you for more difficult encounters, and you can combine them with perks from your magic spell and defensive equipment to really customize Renee as you see fit. There's even a skill tree system for each weapon that gives you more moves to experiment with, so an enemy that can be troublesome early on can become a lot easier with the right moves. That, and it's legit cool to see Renee do some really stylish stuff with your weapon of choice. Honestly, with how huge this game is, and with all the content and side stories available, I have more fun just choosing where I want to go at the moment, whether it's the direction I should be headed in or not. The main story, while certainly a good motivator, feels pretty secondary in the long run, and it's more interesting to learn about Ungarden and just what happened to it, and just help out the many NPCs out in the side quests. And also admire Ungarden's beauty. I am a big fan of this game's art direction with all the hand-drawn sprites and wonderful coloration of each area. The game is always marvelous to look at, even the more grotesque areas. Top that off with memorable character designs and a wonderfully atmospheric soundtrack, and you have a game that I'm glad to spend more time with. It's definitely a game that asks for a lot out of you because of its size and the fact that sometimes it does kick your butt pretty hard. But if what you see intrigues you, I guarantee you'll have fun getting lost in it all. I never noticed what exactly Mario was missing throughout the series' lifespan on the Switch until just recently. Aside from Odyssey, the great majority of Mario's outings on the Switch have either been ports from existing games, both on the Switch Online service and re-releases sold on the shelves, or spin-offs. I never really knew how much I missed 2D Mario until the announcement of Super Mario Bros. Wonder, but it made the game feel like such a breath of fresh air. I mean, the new Super Mario Bros. Games are fine as they are, but you can definitely tell that as they went on, they became more of an obligatory inclusion to the console, rather than something that really pushed the series forward. And the two Mario makers, while great level editors, can't really serve as replacements for them. Mario Wonder was exactly what was needed to breathe new life into not just 2D Mario, but just the entire franchise in general. It keeps what worked about the new games mechanically, but what they do within the levels is really what makes this entry strong. Each level is not only very fun in their own way, but the game does a ton to keep the structure fresh and new. While a certain amount of Wonder Seeds are needed to reach the boss level, you can collect them while skipping levels entirely, and nothing's stopping you from 100%ing each one on the first go. There's also some levels that have you do something completely different, like scouring an open playground to hunt for big flower coins, or completing a mini level with a certain badge, or defeating waves of enemies, or even racing a Wiggler. Heck, if you really know where to look, you can finish some levels within the special world before reaching the final boss, which I'm glad to see. The new power-ups are also a blast to use as well, with all of them being new, aside from the classic Super Mushroom, Fire Flower, and Superstar. There's only 6 total, counting the star, but I think they shine brightly in terms of versatility and fun factor, and some routes are even built with those power-ups in mind. But all this is before you take the Wonder Flowers into account. The levels were already fun, but the Wonder Flowers really give them that extra push into the territory of fantastic. They're all so creative, and I was legitimately excited to see which one was going to be in the near future, whether that be the sweetest Halloween party you'll ever see, the experience of drifting through space, Indiana Jones Simulator, or
You're gonna turn into a Goomba!
well, those, and getting to witness the miraculous parade of piranha plants. Having access to so many different playable characters is also welcome, even if they don't change the core gameplay that much. The badge system adds on a lot of possibilities to approach levels, and encourages replayability, and the game even has online multiplayer for you to learn about tricks and secrets, and you can even participate in races with your friends. Gotta tell you, playing some of these levels in race format is the definition of fun and hilarity. Mario Wonder has plenty to keep you coming back for more playtime, and it just feels like a 2D Mario game I didn't know I wanted for a while. Between this, the Mario movie, the Mario RPG remake, the upcoming Princess Peach Showtime, and the Mario spin-offs that are either getting remastered or remade, I think this marks not just a renaissance for Mario, but in a way, a new beginning. I cannot wait to see what Nintendo's planning for him in the future. Hopefully the next 3D entry will be even better.
Pizza Tower.
I really wasn't expecting a game like Pizza Tower to go viral on the internet around its release, let alone see so many different kinds of videos on it, but after playing it for myself, it very much deserved to. Pizza Tower really just gets to the point with everything. The most you'll get as a story is an intro cutscene with no dialogue, and animations and gameplay moments that range from funny to completely unhinged. While it is fun to see what kind of insane animation you'll find in a new level or boss, Pizza Tower clearly just wants you to have fun with what Peppino could do, and the overall level design, and it's all the better for it. Peppino can reach stupidly fast speeds, and has a lot of moves that can really help keep the pace going. Every level is very well designed, and each one has their own gimmicks to set them apart from one another, while still keeping the core gameplay consistent. From rolling around in a barrel in a pirate ship, playing golf with a sentient pizza bowl with glasses, shoplifting in grocery stores in the desert, playing Five Nights at Freddy's, or getting arrested, I look forward to playing through every level, sometimes in different ways. There are plenty of rewards for exploration, and it's amazingly satisfying to find the right routes without slowing down. The game even has a ranking system, and a mechanic that lets you run through the section where you have to make it back to the beginning 2 separate times, in case you want that coveted P rank. Granted, those are insane and definitely not for me in the context of the levels, but it's great to see them try to appeal to as many people as possible without watering the experience down. The bosses are really awesome as well. These are incredibly energetic and fun encounters that I personally like P ranking more, since getting that here only requires that you not get hit. Fighting them was already a blast, but I grew to appreciate them a lot more by doing flawless runs, because of how rewarding it is to learn the attack patterns, especially if you choose to parry any of them, and know how to potentially avoid more threatening attacks. Add on an art direction that is really charming with how it cleverly calls back to both older games and older hardware, and a fantastic soundtrack, and the game just comes together and feels like a product the devs behind it really had a blast making. This is an absolute must-play for anyone who loves fast-paced 2D platformers.
Pizza Face? The segment's over. Can't imagine having to start the segment over if I didn't finish it in time.
And here I was thinking 2022 was pure validation for loving Sonic the Hedgehog. But here comes 2023 to keep it going. From Prime continuing to be sweet, to Frontiers, one of my favorite Sonic games, getting more content and being even better, to a brand new 2D entry that I consider for this list. It's amazing to see that the series is seeing a resurgence. But within it all lies a game that had zero reason to go this hard, but I am thankful it did. Like, this is coming from a development team who made Sonic-themed Endless Runners, and here they are to step it up with a game that feels like it's as much of a genuine 3D entry as any of the console releases. I'm amazed with how Sonic Dream Team exceeded my expectations. Despite it being an Apple Arcade exclusive for now, the only mobile game trope Dream Team has is weekly missions. And that's it. Everything else takes the more explorative aspects of games like the Adventure Duo, with insane high-speed thrills and rewards for keeping the speed going from the Boost games, and mixes them together seamlessly. Every level, despite the general linearity, has numerous open-ended sections to either look around and find the fastest route to the end, or scavenge around for collectibles or items needed to progress through the stage. But the puzzle aspects don't interfere with the pace. Some of them are even their own platforming challenges that you likely won't do in missions where you gotta book it to the end, like a typical Sonic game. These acts also have their own separate missions within them, which can either send you on a different route to get to the goal, be its own platforming challenge, or be a hunt for a certain amount of collectibles, like Nichols and Rouge's levels in the adventure games. I'm happy they brought these back. It's also really neat how each level is themed after some aspect of Eggman's character and his dreams, like how most of the beach aspects of Scrambled Shores are artificial, and how Nightmare Maze is a sort of reflection of his inner madness. The controls feel spot on, even with the phone touchpad and buttons. Having access to 6 playable characters is amazing, especially with Cream and Rouge finally seeing some more 3D action after so long. And the weekly missions are a great time, even if you're shooting for the top of the leaderboards. These can also be a good way to learn about the level design, as the score count will probably lead you to discovering shortcuts you might not have noticed earlier, as well as getting across how useful homing onto any points of the rails is for speedrunning. This genuinely feels like a Sonic game that makes the best out of its small size, and doesn't settle for just being a serviceable phone app. To speak for its quality, even if I got everything, and even if a mission isn't available in the challenge menu at the moment, I still come back to these levels and their missions so I can master my runs with them, something I don't usually do with Sonic games. And that's an achievement I applaud Dream Team for. Honestly, I would not mind seeing them make a new console title, or at least team up with Sonic Team for one. If they could soar with flying colors here, maybe they can lend some of that experience for something bigger. Who knows? Despite my agreement that Disney's over-reliance on Star Wars is becoming a bit tiresome, namely with the high amount of streaming shows and the sort of indirect message that they're treating all this output as just content, my love for this franchise really has not gone anywhere. There's still a good amount of shows coming out that I enjoy and look forward to. Lego Skywalker Saga was awesome, and last year, we got what has become one of my favorite Star Wars games. I had a great time with Jedi Fallen Order back when I first played it, and again for my recent review, so I'm overjoyed Jedi Survivor builds upon the foundation it left, and added in so much more. It keeps a lot of the design aspects that made Fallen Order unique and fun, but goes bigger with them, to the point where it's bordering on being an open world game. This direction not only makes every world feel bigger, even if a large chunk of resources went into Kobo, but there's a general mix of imaginative platforming and open fields to mess around in, and go after objectives you want. Helped out by the fact that there's a mix of planets previously established in the Star Wars mythos getting interpreted here, and brand new ones entirely, which adds a lot to the game's overall identity. Cal's already capable when starting a new game, thanks to most of Fallen Order story upgrades being already on you from the start. But the more you get throughout the story, make exploration and combat more exciting, and serve as a good way to show how more in tune with the Force Cal is becoming. Combat is even more enjoyable with enemies being far more formidable than previously, but with Cal's new skills and new lightsaber stances, complete with their own skill trees, you can clear out squadrons of enemies easily, even if you fight them in big bulk, which you might have to do from time to time. These can feel right at home in a hack and slash at points. For those who are wondering, my favorite stance is absolutely dual wield, because I love wielding 2 swords and found this to be a good compromise of combo potential and defensive play. And with upgraded combat come fantastic boss battles. These not only can get pretty tough, but it is so much fun to square off with them and mix offensive and defensive plays when the situation calls for it. With my personal favorites going to every encounter with Dagon Gera and the fight with Ravis. Actually, scratch that. The shiny beacon of boss design is, without question, Rick the Door Technician. Majestic. I also really like the decision to change focus on being on a mission opposing the Empire to finding a place to live peacefully away from it. It not only fits given the chronology and the appeal of viewing this universe from a certain point of view, but I like how they use it as a vehicle to drive each of the old characters, given they've grown a considerable amount over 5 years, but also expand upon what's already been established in terms of lore and introduce some new things. It was super cool to see aspects of the High Republic days be important, and every part of it flows into each character's desires near perfectly, even those of the villains. Many of the side characters have their own stories to share in side quests. The game looks terrific visually. Like, I would mistake this for a movie or a show if I squinted my eyes hard enough in some of these cutscenes. The amount of appearance customization you have with Cal, his lightsaber, his new blaster, and even BD-1 is wonderful and a good incentive for exploration. And there's plenty of amazing moments in gameplay that really add to the cinematic value and just how fun the game truly is. Jedi Survivor is definitely a reminder that Star Wars can still be awesome, and I'm really curious to see where Star Wars games go from here, let alone a potential sequel if they decide to make a trilogy out of this. Another fine addition to the collection. You know, a lot of my favorite games of these years come from hype circles I followed since announcements that were more than worth the wait, but some have taken top spots either by completely subverting my expectations, or in this game's case, coming completely out of nowhere. Hi-Fi Rush is a game I was immediately hooked on from the first trailer, but there was no room for a hype circle. It just crashed on set and put on one heck of a show without elaborating that I was more than happy to eventually witness for myself. The idea of making a hack and slash with a ton of elements of rhythm games is insanely creative, but admittedly, it made me a smidge skeptical at first glance. I may love hack and slashes, but I'm very bad at rhythm games. But I was worried for nothing. The game does its best to accommodate for players who aren't the best at those, by giving them options on how to get a feel for the rhythm, some more obvious, but some a little more subtle, like some of the background props bouncing to the music. I never once felt alienated from combat sequences or anything else that requires strong timing, because the game has plenty to ease anyone in, while still offering rewards for more skilled players. Combat sequences are always a joy, because not only do you have attacks that are a feast for the eyes and reward you for good timing, but the extra options like the special moves, the assists, the occasional parry finishers that are like a game of Simon Says, and the grappling hook that I think Chai learned how to do by watching Nero from Devil May Cry, add on a lot more variety to each encounter, and they do wonders for this game's boss battles. These elites of Vandalay technologies are a joy to take on, and have plenty to make each encounter feel fresh and new. Heck, the game literally made a QuickTime Event Fest boss actually awesome. That alone warranted this game a spot on here. I also really like how the rhythm elements and even the friend assists are implemented into the level design, as the game wants them to feel more like a part of your kit in all circumstances, rather than just factors for combat. The story is really well put together, with a really wild cast of characters, both heroes and villains alike, a lot of great moments of character developments, some of which I could totally see in a film directed by James Gunn, and a boatload of absolutely hilarious jokes and cutscenes and dialogue both in between and during stages. The mid-stage dialogue especially went a long way in making every character even better, and select gameplay moments more fun. Some of my favorite examples being Zanzo's VR gauntlet, as it is hilarious to hear him go bonkers with his budget, and eventually hear his assistants be skeptical on how far he's willing to go at the risk of being defunded, you can guess where that goes, and every bit of dialogue in Korsica's fight, as Chai's methods of angering her are delightful, even when one was completely unintentional.
Wait, what does oblivious mean?
Chai, you brought this on yourself. The art direction is also amazing, as the colors really pop, and it feels like it embraces its cartooniness without feeling like it needs to push the system to its limits. And I think the game gives you plenty of reason to go back, with the numerous achievements, the available challenges, and even a brief post-game storyline taking you through alternate routes of previous stages. Hi-Fi Rush has a lot to do after the main story is done, but not to a point where it feels bloated. It did what it needed to do, but it not only did it spectacularly, it was honest about how much it just wanted to make people happy and have fun in its own quirky little way. It's refreshing given the direction AAA gaming is going, but it is also a reminder of how awesome games can truly be, even if they don't go that huge or grand in scale. And that is, without a doubt, deserving of my respect. Look at me saying games don't need to be grand and large in scale in order to be incredible, only to put two large AAA games higher than a good example of it. I love contradictions. But being more serious, even if I had a lot of trouble deciding between my top three, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is the work of masters. The pressure to make a legitimate sequel to Breath of the Wild must have already been immense considering how much of a gaming landmark it is, and how long this game had to go with just being called the sequel to Breath of the Wild. But now that it came to be, I'm overjoyed by how much fun I had, and how much Tears of the Kingdom made exploring Hyrule feel fresh and new, despite how much of the core gameplay and world design was carried over from its predecessor. It is admittedly a little difficult to notice what exact areas are just about the same as they were in Breath of the Wild, because of how huge this version of Hyrule is, but the parts I did recognize did have that little something to make exploring them still fun, whether that be activity from the upheaval, or just genuine change caused by nature or NPCs between games, like some caverns being formed in places where shrines previously were, Kakariko having some construction on the higher grounds, or the returning Yiga clan hijacking the Great Plateau. Guess it's good our journey didn't start there. What truly makes the experience all its own is the new tools Link has, and the fact that exploration potential is now basically 3 times what it previously was. For the latter, the upheaval caused numerous islands to ascend into the sky, which house their own puzzles, challenges, and treasures to find. Whenever I find a way to access a new sky island, either through just being launched up, or by finding a giant rock that fell from the sky and using recall to use as an elevator, I was legit looking forward to what I could find, regardless of the island's actual size. But that event also opened up a bunch of holes that lead underground into the depths. This place is a lot more perilous than the ground and the sky, but it's amazing to see a whole other world right under your feet, and there's where to come down here to find more formidable opponents, find rare treasures, and mine for Zonite, which can lead you to upgrade your battery pack and utilize Zonite devices in more creative ways. The Zonite devices in general are my favorite part of the gameplay. You can use these to think of whatever creative solution to puzzles you so desire, and more importantly, create whatever you can think of, and throw in random objects you have in your inventory or just lying around for it. A lot of my playtime has just been spent upgrading my battery so I can get more out of this part of the game, and for good reason. I am addicted to just going crazy with simple ideas, whether that be a drone decked out with weapons, or just a motorcycle. A lot of shrines even show you some ways you can utilize them, so I think you can form your own ideas from there. Heck, I even love checking out what other people online come up with. Like, wow everyone! Just wow! I was also happy to see dungeons and bosses be an immense step up from last time as well. The dungeons may not be on a caliber to ones from earlier Zeldas, but I feel they not only effectively use your Ultra Hand abilities, especially if you're finding all the chests, but they also have far more to offer than the Divine Beast interiors. The bosses are loads better because they're more varied than the previous Ganon avatars, but they also have this climactic feel, and there's multiple ways to fight them, making it a matter of preference. The story is also fun to follow with some very likable companions, and one of the best incarnations of Zelda and Ganondorf to date. Seriously, this Ganondorf is a total beast. The other Ultra Hand abilities are very handy tools, and the game gives you even more freedom with what you want to do in order to extend your playtime. If I wasn't trying to get the most out of building, then I was just finding as many shrines as possible, and even obtaining the Master Sword before setting foot into a single story-related quest. Tears of the Kingdom does tread familiar territory, but it doesn't try to do the same thing over again. It stands on its own and gives you an experience worth playing through. That's proof of its quality, and my personal biggest reason why I think it's disingenuous to say that it completely replaces Breath of the Wild. I mean, if you want to get technical, Tears of the Kingdom does legit improve on it, provides a much bigger experience, and allows Link to do a lot more than he ever could, so you could say that it's stronger in terms of gameplay. But I feel that logic undermines what Breath of the Wild managed to do, and I can see some reasons why some would prefer that game, as there are some things that got excluded here, and the smaller size in comparison can be a good thing to some. To me, the two games act as amazing accomplices to one another, and show just how far the Zelda series has come even after all these years, and how far it'll continue to go. I adore Tears of the Kingdom just as much as Breath of the Wild, and I think both deserve to be celebrated for years to come. And I choose to celebrate by turning this game into Zelda Hawks Pro Skater. Sometimes it's the little things that are fun. Octopath Traveler 2. I got this game for Christmas and had plenty of time to sink 15 hours into it, and so far, I'm having a great time. It feels like more of what made the first game great, just with some tweaks and quality of life improvements to really help out. I'm enjoying all the characters, and the soundtrack so far is aces. The only reason why I'm not putting it on here is because despite the time I spent with it, I'm really only scratching the surface with what it has to offer, and there's a lot more I think I should consider before giving it an official spot. Regardless though, it's great. Sonic Superstars. It has its shortcomings, but I think it's a great continuation of the classic Sonic formula. Every level is fun and memorable, and having Amy and another character on top of the original three really adds a lot. Not much else to say, it's just a really good 2D Sonic game. And sadly that is it. Really wish I tried out more games before 2023 ended, but it is what it is. I personally may not have had too many candidates to work with for a top 10, but it definitely came down to the wire when picking number 1. I wanted to go with Hi-Fi Rush or Tears of the Kingdom for many reasons, but when I truly thought of a game I played that I think deserved it the most, a game that truly won me over last year...
I got the idea to put this back on. I think you know where this is going.
As someone who adored the first Insomniac Spider-Man game on PS4, so much to bring it up frequently in countdowns and do a full-fledged review on it last year, even rekindling my love for Spider-Man a good degree from it, along with Into the Spider-Verse, and really enjoying Miles Morales, I was excited and very curious to see what they were going to do with the sequel. But when I laid eyes on that gameplay trailer back during Sony's State of Play in May of last year, I was immediately hooked, and every other trailer just elevated that even further. And... well, here it is, swinging to number 1. The game feels like it's expanding upon what the 2018 game and Miles Morales did in gameplay, but I feel like it balances the two out insanely well, so you're not wrapping your head into knots too much to memorize what each Spider-Man can do, and also properly represent what each one specializes in. Both have a lot more ways they can approach fights with their exclusive combat moves, the shared gadgets, and even the parry they can do now. As such, whether you're taking down goons or an imposing boss, fights are honestly more fun here than the other two games. You can clear up bigger squads even faster than you ever could, and properly using the extra combat moves and the parry lead to them looking cooler and feeling better overall. And it only gets better with the new upgrades they can get in the skill trees. These also show how much I love what they did with the symbiote in all departments. In gameplay, it has its own skill tree upgrades, its own special moves, and even its own berserk mode that just ruins every mook's day. But it feels like the ways it's stronger than what Spidey can do normally is just right. Not too overpowered for when you eventually lose it later on, but not too underpowered either. Trust me, you'll feel like a force of nature with this, and you won't want to get rid of it early on. But the storytelling around it is also so strong to make you question if it's even worth keeping. Speaking of that, the direction the story goes in had me intrigued the whole time. I love seeing how exactly relationships and situations get strange with Harry Osborn venturing out into the open with the symbiote, and how it gets worse when it latches onto Peter, and how he increasingly becomes more horrible towards those he cares about over the course of the game, including the likes of Miles and Mary Jane, especially considering every bit of emotional baggage he's putting up with. Insomniac did a wonderful job handling this symbiote, and it's one of my personal favorite executions of this comic arc that I have seen. It's also cool to see Miles get some character development, as he's not only growing to be a better Spider-Man, but also learning to let go of previous grievances with the returning Mr. Negative. The way he helps people in this plot and becomes a better person feels genuinely earned, especially what happened to him previously. Seeing previous villains like Tombstone and the aforementioned Mr. Negative redeemed was awesome, and this version of Kraven is amazing. There's little tragedy to be had with him. He's just a beast out for blood, and dang does he have the intimidation of one. The game also improves upon world traversal, as well. The biggest additions to the structure are adding in Brooklyn and Queens. It's been made even more fun because of the increased speed, the web wings, and the extra mobility upgrades. The speeds you can reach and the routes you can take by gliding just make exploring the city feel more liberating, and I chose to do this for a lot of my playtime to see how exactly I could go the fastest or be the most stylish while just moving around. Very infrequently did I want to fast travel, but even if I did, I am so happy they made that instantaneous and have it look so cool, even if I'll miss the subway animations. But regardless of what you want to do, the side mission variety is really strong, as a lot of them have their own stories to tell, from Miles helping out at school with Spider-Man jobs and helping a local music museum with stolen instruments, to Peter meeting Yuri again and seeing how much she has changed since previously, to just interacting with city folk, to a reference to another Spider-Man series that I'm not going to spoil here. It's fun to do these as a break from the action, and with the passive and move upgrades, and especially the numerous suits Peter and Miles have, some returning, some new, the rewards are well worth the effort. There's numerous gameplay moments that are really effective narratively and gameplay-wise. Presentation and voice performances are phenomenal, with Yuri Lowenthal selling everything about Peter in this. I could tell he had the time of his life voicing the lines for him in the symbiote suit. And this feels like a game that wanted to continue the story the previous games left off on in a really engaging way, without feeling like it had to do something for the sake of it. I will still happily return to the original, but 2 goes in a direction I wanted it to take, and I am legit so excited with what Insomniac will follow this up with in the near future. They already seem to be onto something with what the ending of the game left off on, and potential future updates, so whatever they have planned for this game, or anything else, my eyes and ears will always be on it. I am the Lightning Ripper, and it's cool to see Spider-Man take this top spot, and the position of my favorite movie of 2023 simultaneously. See you all next time.